Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of the Fintech Diaries. I believe we're on episode 8 now, which is fantastic. If it's your first time watching, hi, quick introduction from me as always. My name is Jack Terrell and I do specialize in financial technology recruitment within the UK. For the past couple of months now, I've been talking to founders, CTOs, and other senior leaders actually within fintech organizations to provide this podcast, which is, I suppose, focused on providing educational content for technologists out there. Today, I had the pleasure actually of sitting down with James Trunk, who is the VP of Engineering at Griffin. Griffin is a banking as a service platform that are making waves at present with their cutting edge technology. James and I discussed the background of the business and the technologies that are instilled. I suppose how he actually tackles the challenge of both scaling and fostering, I suppose, values and a culture and things like that within a remote first global workforce. Listen on for more. Hello, James. Good afternoon. Thanks very much for joining me. It's great to have you on.
Hi, Jack. It's lovely to be here with you.
Good man. So I suppose let's just get stuck into question one. And before we get into Griffin, the work you're doing there, etc., could you tell us a bit about your journey into the tech world, and particularly maybe what inspired you to pursue a career in technology, and I suppose the path that has ultimately led you to becoming VP of Engineering at Griffin?
Yeah, I guess that's quite a long story, but the short version is as a kid and teenager, I was some mixture of nerdy and sporty, and I guess
Okay.
I still am. So not much changes, right? And we did a career aptitude test. I think I was 10 years old, maybe. And you filled out all of these multiple choice questions, and it got sent off to some government department, and a computer processed it. And it came back with you're going to be a fireman, and mine came back software engineer at
Okay.
10. So it felt like it was on the cards. I played football with my friends, and then we played computer games together. And I always had an affinity with computers. And as I got a bit older into my teens, it was the magic of being able to create something that didn't exist with programming that really caught my attention and really got me to fall in love with it. It made me feel even more like a wizard than you would in the games in a way, because you could literally invent something out of blank cloth, and there it was, a whole system that you built. And I found that magical. So I went into it at university, did a sandwich degree where you got a placement year, and I learned so much during that placement year. And then got a job in a startup, and from there it just kind of grew. So I started as a developer and did
Hmm.
that for maybe a decade, and
Okay.
really enjoyed it. But I learned that I also enjoyed the people shaped problems that come with building software, because software isn't just bits, it's not just ones and zeros, it's the people that are involved in the problem that you're solving, and the people that are involved in building the solution that matches the problem that you're solving. So that's how I kind of drifted towards leading teams, and eventually got my first CTO role, and then have been doing roles like that. So I'm currently VP of Engineering at Griffin, which is a bit more people and process oriented
Mhm.
than technology. Yeah, that's I said short, and it wasn't that short, so apologies for that. That's the
No,
story.
perfect, perfect. And so, Griffin, obviously fintech. Could you maybe just tell us a little bit about it in terms of people who maybe aren't familiar with the business? What, and then maybe lead on to what sets Griffin apart from, I suppose, other players in a similar space.
Sure. Yeah, we're still a relatively new player, a
Okay.
new bank. We got our banking license on the 29th of February this year, so we have
Okay.
an unusual birth date that won't come around every year, which is going to be exciting. Um, and so we're a banking as a service platform. So for people that don't know what that means, what it means is that we're a platform that other fintechs build on top of
Hmm.
to do embedded finance solutions for their customers. So in the same way that AWS with Amazon or Google Cloud, they're not. That's a product that other people build on top of to create another product. That's
Yeah.
what we are, but for banking. And we differentiate on being an actual bank with a banking license. There are other players in the market that are what's called EMIs, or electronic money institutes, that don't have a banking license. So that means that we can offer a broader set of functionality and features and accounts to our customers, which it adds a lot of value. And how else do we differ on the technology? I'm sure we'll get into technology later
Yes.
in our chat, but we differ quite a lot in our approach to technology, and how API first the experience is. So I don't know if you've heard of, I'm sure you've heard of Stripe, but their whole success was build something that other developers in their customers or potential customers love to use, because it's so
Mhm.
beautifully documented. The API is really clean. So our idea is that, but not just for payments as Stripe does it, but for the whole banking ecosystem.
100%. You did sort of touch into my next question there. It was actually going to be around the technology then. So, like, obviously, Griffin,
Apologies.
known for its the cutting edge technology as a business, obviously, particularly in banking as a service, and that platform as such. But could you maybe delve into the sort of core technologies that power the infrastructure, and any, I suppose, like unique challenges you guys face when it comes to building and maintaining a platform like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess that the biggest technology choice we've made in terms of differentiating ourselves from most other companies, but not all, is the programming language that we picked. We
Okay.
picked Clojure. Both of the founders, David and Alan, had a background in Clojure. Alan had built a previous company using Clojure that was extremely successful, and they wrote a book together about the language. So
Oh,
they both loved the language, and they saw how beautifully applicable that way of thinking about writing software right from that programming language level up matched to this banking domain. I won't go into all the details there, but it's about, in banking, ledgers are an important thing where you just append to a ledger. You never cross out, you never overwrite. And Clojure's whole mindset about software is about having this immutable data, these values that change with time, but in a different way than most programming languages think about time and state. So it's just this fundamental impedance match right at that ground level of the technology, which then sort of percolates up to the rest of the system. Maybe one other technology that's worth mentioning, the way we store the data is now Foundation DB, and
okay.
Foundation DB is Apple's database, or they bought it.
Okay.
And so obviously the good thing about that is it scales to Apple scale, one of the biggest companies, if not the biggest in the world, right? So building on top of something that's that scalable, but also that,
Yeah.
I want to say correct. It's a highly proven database, and there's a lot of consistency with how it behaves. And it's just this. It's called Foundation for a reason. It's a really solid foundation to build a system and a platform on top of. And we can. It's not a complete database like Oracle. It doesn't offer all the bells and whistles. It's more stripped back. But the idea is
Mhm.
that you add a layer on top of it that matches
Okay.
exactly your use case. So that's what we've done. And it's given us a very powerful platform to build on top of.
Excellent. So with regards to like yourself and like obviously leading a global remote first sort of engineering team, like what are some of the unique challenges that you face in leading a team like that? How can you foster collaboration, innovation? I suppose how do you maintain a strong team culture when everyone is working from like loads of different locations around the world?
Mm, yeah. I would say Griffin's had a very intentional approach to culture right from the very beginning, and it stems from David and Alan and their dream, I think, of building a company that was the shape of company and the type of company that they wanted to work at. And I think they couldn't find it elsewhere, so they thought, well, let's build it. And what that's meant is they've had a set of values and behaviors that we all sort of, it's part of our recruitment drive that we look for people that we're not the same background,
Hmm.
um, and we might not think in exactly the same ways, and we can challenge each other in different ways, but we have the same vector when it comes to values, and
Yeah.
that's what's made a massive difference. And now, obviously, I've been at the company for 3.5 years, and we've grown a lot. So we could all fit in a small room, and now we're well over 100 people. Um, so things change as you grow in terms of the scale. And one of the challenges is keeping that culture as we scale. And a big part of my role is how do we make sure that culture is felt every day by all the engineers in what they're doing. So that's definitely a big part of what I'm thinking about and the challenges that I try and solve.
Okay. And when it comes to then like scaling, I know you mentioned it a little bit there. What would be some of the sort of strategies that you yourself have implemented to ensure that Griffin can scale globally? And I suppose to ensure that your sort of engineering operations can remain efficient, and I suppose that everything still aligns with the company's sort of broader goals and visions that you mentioned there.
Yeah. So it's probably worth mentioning that we're a remote first company.
Yep.
So we have a HQ in London, and people do go there, especially if they live nearby. But I've been based in Stockholm for the whole time, and I've just moved to Paris. So and people live all over Europe. So it's not just the UK, even though a substantial part, at least of engineering, is UK based. So we have different hubs in Sweden and in Berlin or other parts of Germany and different parts of Europe. So making sure that that works and that people feel the culture, even though they're not together with each other day to day physically, is definitely a challenge. There are loads of different things we do. I don't think we have time to go into all of them, but I could maybe pick out a few
Hmm.
choice ones. We use Donut on Slack, which
Okay.
is a way to connect with random people for a coffee where you don't really talk about work. You just try and connect with each other and get to know people. And as the company grows, that becomes a really good way to reach out to people in other departments that you wouldn't normally talk with. So I really enjoy being part of those. And we do lunches where you can put the lunch on your company credit card and you sit together and you either eat before or after or during if you're comfortable eating on or off camera, and you just chat and find out about people's days. We try and make sure that our meetings are set up in a way that even if someone is in the office, that they're not prioritized, that it is remote first, and that you're always feeling included, and that we're including people. So that's almost the behavior approach to when we're running the meetings and making sure that people are always feeling included. And yeah, there's probably a million other things we do, but those were the ones that jumped to the top of my mind.
100%. Could I ask you one final impromptu question?
Please.
Maybe one that we hadn't discussed with previous, but I was just wondering, like in regards to like startups and fintechs and things like that, would there be any advice you could give to people like trying to grow their business or just starting out, or maybe even like VPs of engineering in a similar position to you, looking to scale or grow? Any particular set of advice from your own experiences?
That's a really good question. I mentioned before about how my journey was about understanding the importance of people. I think that's what I would say, because a company is the people. Obviously, there's an intellectual property in whatever technology that you're building. And it sounds so cliche to say this, oh, it's the people. And when you ask someone what's good about where you are, oh, it's the people. They're so lovely. But there is something really profound and correct about that, I think. So if you can be intentional about the kind of people that you hire, it does make a massive, massive difference. So let me give you an example. Let's say you have a hiring strategy of let's hire the best and the brightest, but
Hmm.
not care about cultural
Yeah.
alignment on values. You're going to have the best and the brightest, but people are going to be pulling in subtly different directions to each
Yeah.
other that as you scale can start to cause rifts and chasms to appear and little kingdoms. Whereas if you get people that are aligned on this is how we want to treat each other, this is how we think about dealing with problems, this is how open we want to be about giving each other feedback, whether it's reinforcing or redirecting so that we can learn from each other, it just creates a different environment. And I think it's difficult to retroactively apply it because you can't tell people here's what you should value.
Yeah.
You just have to find people that share those values, if that makes sense.
Definitely. 100%. Sorry for putting you on the spot there. No,
No
look, aside
problem.
from that, I just want to say, look, thanks very much for joining me today. Like, no other further questions from myself. And as always, like, I'll be sure to tag both yourself and obviously the business in the post, so people can reach out to you if they want some more information. Thanks, James.
Thanks for the chat. It was lovely to talk with you.